Well, hey, everybody, getting ready to record Mike in the Midwest. Let's talk. Well, hey, everybody, welcome to episode number. Let's try that again. That was terrible. Frog in the throat. Here we go. Well, hey, everybody, welcome to episode number 146 of Mike in the Midwest, a mini podcast for the amazing patrons just like you of the Be Our Guest podcast. Of course, my name is Mike Rallman, host of the Be Our Guest podcast, and you can find me on the socials at Be Our Guest Mike. And I'd love to talk to you. If we don't talk on Twitter or on Instagram, where are you? Let's connect and let's do that. But I hope you're having a great week, and it's great to have you here on Mike in the Midwest, our little mini show that is really about nothing, but kind of disconnecting midweek to see how you are doing and to let you know what's going on here in my world, and just get together here. This is going to be a shorter show because not a whole lot going on around here. We always kind of connect and talk about the weather and what's happening in the BOGP studios, and I'll tell you what, the weather here has been rather nice. It's a little bit cool for this time of year here in Missouri, but I will say over the past 2 or 3 days, it has been exceptionally windy here. I mean, like 40-mile-an-hour winds since this past weekend. It is crazy windy, and you may have seen the news story, the horrific news story that happened yesterday afternoon just south of Springfield, Illinois, which is about 70 miles from where we live. It's just we travel that road a lot because it's the road we take to Chicago. And anytime we go to Indianapolis or anything like that, it's just north of St. Louis. It's on Interstate 55. There was a horrific crash with over 70 vehicles. They had to close the highway is still closed since yesterday in both directions, Interstate 55. 6 people were killed tragically. 30 had to get sent to the hospital just because the wind was so strong that it came up, and a farmer had just plowed his fields, and it took all the dust, and it's been super dry. We have a guy next to us here where I live. He's like a kind of like a meteorology like hobbyist, and he has this whole home system where you can see he has like a webcam where you can always see 24/7 this webcam out of his back of his house. So he's in the next town, and it gives all the temperature, humidity, all that stuff too on a website. It's really cool. I want to get one for our house. But anyway, at the end of the month, it gives a summary. And where we live, we only had 5 days with rain in April, which is crazy for us. Usually we have at least half the days. And so it's been extremely dry. Well, because this farmer plowed his field and it was super dry, then this wind came up. What happened was, you might have seen it on the news, this dirt just blew over Interstate 55, and they said it immediately went to like blackout conditions. No one could see, and all these cars just in semi trucks and regular trucks, and it was just horrible. And these cars crashed into each other, and just it was a bad thing. So just prayers for all the people involved in the families. It's been a week, and we'll kind of talk about that here on Mike in the Midwest. And here's the thing about today's show. I don't want to lose people, like have you guys not subscribe to the show after today. I always try to keep it light and fun, and talking about Pac-Man and talking about roller skating and playing baseball as a kid, and all the good times, hanging out at the pool as a kid, and my favorite game shows and stuff like that. We're going to do that again. But I've been thinking about this, and it's been a kind of a rough past few days. And I'm one that I don't really I don't get really sad and stuff like that. I don't get down. I always keep a positive framework on things, and that's just how I am. But the thing is, it's been a few days. And I'll just fill you in on what's been going on around here. So Sunday morning, and we've had a really good weekend, right? We've been doing well. Mallory's on the varsity cheer squad. She's getting to really start to connect with her teammates. Some of them, obviously, she's going to be a sophomore. Some of them are going to be juniors. Some of them are going to be seniors. They had last night, they had their first meeting for like get to know you, stuff like that, to find out when they're going to practice, all that kind of stuff. Well, so anyway, and she's been, really excited about this. So Sunday morning, we wake up and, we're getting going and having breakfast. And, I'm I think I got my walk in on the treadmill. And we come upstairs and Mallory comes in and tells us that, tragically, that she got a text from her cheer coach that one of the girls she cheered with on her junior varsity squad last year was tragically killed the previous night, a few hours before. They were out late, and she was killed in a car accident with three other girls. And as a parent, that just stops you in your tracks. You guys have known that I've been talking over the past few weeks about teaching Mallory how to drive, and I did this with Paige. Paige is 26, and she lived in Ireland for a while. She lives in Chicago now. She's worked at Mizzou. She's a young woman. She's no longer a kid. She's totally on her own. But Mallory's transitioning from that little girl to the young woman, and she's my youngest, right? And so I just know that as I sat there on Sunday and we heard this news, and she has two friends by the same name. And when she told us who it was, at first I thought it was her very, very close friend who has the same name. And it just shook me to the core. And it wasn't her, but it was this other friend that was it doesn't minimize anything. But to get news like that, it was just, as a parent, it just rips you to shreds because, the girls were 16, 16, and 15 that were in the car with Mallory's friend that were killed. I mean, just right there at the beginning of their lives. Then the girl in the other car was killed. She was 23. And it's one of those things where, you just wonder why they were going to a party. The party was busted up, and there was a prom. And the thing is, where I live now, we live in it's not a rural area. We live in a booming suburban area of St. Louis. We live out about 20 miles away from the city, right along the Missouri River, right along the bluffs. And it's a desirable area to live in, it's a beautiful area. But here's the thing I didn't think about when we moved out here. And I've started to think about it over the last little bit, is that because we live in this beautiful part of the country, this part of St. Charles County, out of St. Louis County, and we live along the Missouri River, we we are very close to being in this very rural area. It's called the wine country of St. Charles County, where if you go to where Mallory's high school is, which is only 10 minutes down the road from us on the state highway, it's very rural. There's not a lot out there. And so out there's 2-lane, windy, hilly roads everywhere. And we have a lot of those roads around us where we live, a lot of 2-lane, hilly, windy roads. Now, I grew up with a few of those roads around me, and I know that I made bad decisions when I was 16 because I just didn't have experience driving. So when you get news like this, it shakes you to your core as a parent. And I've been praying so hard for these families because I can't imagine what that's like. Um, I think I've talked about my friend. I know I did a show about my friend Steve. He was my best friend all through, middle school, elementary school. He was my catcher all through little league, and I was the pitcher. And we were together all the time. We played wiffle ball every day, all day in the summer. We went to the water slide every day. We cut grass together to earn money to go to the water slide. Our families were together all the time. We were constantly together. I mean, you think Scott and I are tight right now? Steve and I were probably tighter than that as kids. And just one night, we played in a men's softball league. We just, we tried to hold on to our glory. We're in our 40s and we're still hitting dingers up at St. Ferdinand Park in a slow pitch softball game, thinking we're still 12 and playing for the Corey League Tigers. And we're having a good time. And he was a PE teacher in a neighboring district. I was a 6th grade teacher in another district. We were both teachers, and we just had a good old time. And, one Saturday night we played a doubleheader, and I left, and Mallory had a soccer tournament in Columbia, Missouri on a Sunday morning. And I found out Steve was killed that night by a drunk driver, and it just, lost my friend. So when you get news like that, it's hard on you and it changes you. And that was one of those things I didn't know this girl. I mean, I'd seen her cheer because she was on Mallory's cheer squad, but it is hard to shake that. I've been trying to shake it for the last 3 days, and it's really hard. They had a vigil that night up at the high school on the football field. They had a moment of silence yesterday at the high school as school started. And, we are trying to move on, but they're going to make sure that they remember Addie this whole season throughout the cheer season. But I just wanted to bring that to you because, I don't even know why I'm bringing this up on Mike in the Midwest. I just haven't really had a chance to bring it up to anybody else. And I figure you guys are like my closest, podcast family here. And I just wonder like what take you have on that, what experience you have on situations like this as a parent or just as a human, just as a person. Because, I've been trying to take extra care of Mallory, as a dad, making sure she's okay because she's not, I mean, she's fine. She's acting totally fine, but it's hard, Pam slept with her that the first night because she was a little bit shaken up. And it's one of those things. And, Pam was honest with her. She told her, you're in high school now. This will probably happen again, once or twice more before you graduate. And she's exactly right because it happened to Pam counted 4 different people that this happened to throughout her high school career. And I know 3 people in my high school that were killed between my freshman and senior year in car accidents. And so that's not happy. That's the reality. And you just got to you got to be as safe as you can and make good decisions. But it's one of those things, you just hold on to your kids as tight as you can, but you also have to let them live their life and have faith that everything's going to work out. So I don't even know why I brought that up today. I just love you guys so much. And I wanted to have that conversation. But on top of that, I wanted, because that's not even the topic I was going to talk about, but that's what's been dominating, what's been going on around here, taking care of your kid. And I just kind of wanted to get your feedback because I want to be a good dad. And I try not to, look shaken up or anything. And I'm not. I did the podcast last night, and I never want this to spill over into the enjoyment that our audience gets out of the Be Our Guest podcast. I always want to try to be a point of joy. You know what I'm saying? Something that is you look forward to listening to on a Monday, a Wednesday, and a Friday. And I hope you listen to the live shows on Thursdays too, because they're fun. But I hope that we always share some laughs and some good information as well. And especially maybe we spark some memories of past trips. Those kind of the big 3 for me. But I never want to bring you down. And I don't want to bring you down here either. But I think Mike in the Midwest is more of a real show. And it's kind of something where we can just take a break here and step away from Disney for a few minutes and just kind of get together and, reminisce sometimes and go over some memories sometimes, but also, just have a conversation. And I know it's one-sided today, but I know it'll be two-sided next week because it's kind of asynchronous. You'll have your chance to give your feedback, and I think it'll help me. I know it's kind of hard to be concise in the comments, but and you make it, and time heals all wounds. And it wasn't like this person was somebody that was a family member, but it still hurts because I ache for the families. Because when somebody like this is so young and they were just trying to pass a car on a rural road and made a bad decision. They tried to make a pass. Somebody was coming the other direction. They didn't see him, head on accident, and all 4 were killed. It's one of those things. So I'm not going to bring you down anymore. I just wanted to get your thoughts. How do you handle situations like this if you've been through them? Just take care of her and just hope for the best. So let's get into other things that are going on. This week, we're going to have some great shows for you that are not going to be downers. I promise you that's over. We're 11 minutes in, but we're behind that. I apologize. I sincerely apologize for bringing anybody down. I did not mean that. So please don't just unsubscribe. I will not do this. I don't even know why I did that, but I just love you guys and I believe in you guys. And I just wanted to have that conversation. I think I needed to have it. Okay. So this week, we're going to have listener questions, and we get some great ones. We talk about some questions for first timers that are going on the Be Our Guest podcast cruise. If we could each give one tip, what would we give? I give a good tip. It's my standard tip, but it's the best tip, I think. We also talk about a great place to have a dinner for a 25th wedding anniversary, which is great. And this couple met at the Disney store. How 90s is that? Meeting at the Disney store, then getting married. I miss the Disney stores at the mall. Those were kind of fun. And, just other questions, logistical questions about Disneyland. Should you go to the park the day you land? When you get there, this person has 5-day tickets coming all the way from the UK. Should they go into the park? They land at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Should they go to the park right then? Or should they just chill? Or should they go to the park the last day, but they have to fly out at they have to leave for the airport at noon? So what would you do? Would you go immediately into the park? Because then you could see that night, you could see the parade and the fireworks. Or do you save that last day of your tickets for the departure day and get up super early and go from like 9 to noon and get 3 good hours in, but you wouldn't get the parade and the fireworks obviously that day. So that's kind of a tough call. So what do you think? Give us patreon.com/BRGS podcast, of course, always for the comments. So add that in too. I'm curious because we kind of went both ways on that one. I said to wait and use it for the last day because I think you can get so much done in the morning. Coming all the way from the UK, you're going to be tired, and you can go to downtown Disney and have some fun, get some candy at Marceline's and stuff like that. Get a meal, maybe over at Tortilla Joe's or the Jazz Kitchen or something. I don't know. That's just me. What would you do? That's a good question. I appreciate that one. Also on Friday, this Friday, what's Friday besides Revenge of the Fifth? It's Cinco de Mayo. So we jump in and talk about where to celebrate Cinco around Walt Disney World. Of course, you're going to talk about the Mexico Pavilion at Epcot, but we're going to talk about places off the beaten path to grab some Mexican food and also some Spanish food, kind of, Mexican adjacent like Jaleo. Where to get margaritas, kind of off the beaten path, and attractions and live entertainment and stuff like that. We just, it wasn't a serious show. It's just something to think about for Cinco de Mayo. And if you're ever down there on Cinco, it's a lot of fun. I've been there probably Cinco de Mayo, or probably 2 or 3 of the last 5 years because the Summit Cheerleading Championships happen to fall over that weekend or that holiday, and it's fun. I mean, it's a minor holiday, but it's a fun time to be there. So Cinco tips. If you have any Cinco tips, let us know, and we can add those to next week's show as well. All right, so let's get into today's topic, which is kind of a downer, but kind of a reality check, I think, for those of us that are in, and I think a lot of us are kind of my age. I feel like I'm 22, but I'm only 27. I wish, but I still feel like I am. So if you notice, the title of the show was something like When a Part of Your Childhood Dies. And I think when you get to be like in your 40s, this happens like slowly but surely, you know. And here's what I mean by that. So as you grow up with certain things, whether it's like regional or national or, very local to you. There's certain things that are just like they're a part of you. For example, my grandparents always took me to Steak and Shake. Well, let's drill down even further. When I was growing up, I had all 4 grandparents. I had my grandma and grandpa on both sides of my family. And I didn't lose any of my grandparents until I was in high school. And that was very unusual with my friend circle, that I had all 4 grandparents. And then I lost, my grandma on my mom's side, and I lost my grandpa on my mom's side, and then I lost my grandma on my grandpa on my dad's side, and then my grandma on my mom's side or my dad's side. So I slowly lost them, but when I lost them each time, I was losing a piece of my childhood, right? Because when I first lost my grandma Eileen, she was the first one that passed away out of my 4 grandparents. Like, I lost that connection to that they lived around the block from our old house growing up, and just going over there. I remember she was a coffee drinker, and you go over there in the morning, like, or sometimes my mom would drop me off. I was sick from school, and she'd make you just like a cheese sandwich. It would just be like white bread, butter, and a piece of cheese. And I've never heard of that, but that's what she'd make us. Grandma Eileen would make us and sometimes she'd have Velveeta, which was the bomb. She'd cut it up with that little cheese cutter, like a little, it was like a special Velveeta cutter off the block. And that was always like a treat to have that from Grandma Eileen. And when she passed away, and she always took us over to see my great grandparents in Alton, Illinois, across the river, because those were her parents. And they were still alive until I was in middle school. And, as they passed away, you start to lose a little piece of your childhood because you can't go back to that. So the story I'm getting to just for this week's show, and it's not going to be a long show. Again, this is a mini podcast, and I usually go way too long, is that if you saw in the news Mike Shannon passed away on Sunday. And you probably don't know who Mike Shannon is unless you're from St. Louis. And we don't have a whole lot of our folks in the Patreon here that are from St. Louis. But Mike Shannon was a St. Louis Cardinal baseball player in the 1960s. He won 2 World Series with the Cardinals, and we had a really good Cardinals team in the 60s. Lou Brock, Bob Gibson, Tim McCarver. I mean, we had all these Hall of Famers on this team. Really, really good team. We went up against the Yankees during that era, and he was a great ball player. But before that, he was a great. And he's from St. Louis. He's a St. Louis kid. He grew up in South St. Louis. He went to CBC High School, which is a private Catholic high school here in St. Louis. And then he went to Mizzou and he played quarterback for 1 year for Mizzou. And the Mizzou football coach said that if he would have stayed at Mizzou, he would have had a really good chance at winning the Heisman Trophy, is the best college football player in the nation. That's how good he was at football. But after 1 year of playing football at Mizzou, the St. Louis Cardinals wanted him to play baseball. And so they signed him to a contract. So he gave up football. Long story short, he went on to a very successful baseball career with the Cardinals, but he had something wrong with his kidneys, so he had to quit playing ball early. He didn't get to play like till his old age. He didn't play a full career, but they invited him into the broadcast booth, and so he broadcasted with Jack Buck, who was a legendary baseball broadcaster, play-by-play man like Vin Scully or Jerry Remy. All these like beloved announcers, Harry Carey. Those kind of folks. And so you guys know from all these Mike in the Midwest stories that I am a huge baseball fan and always was. My grandpa Rallman, Grandpa Charlie, my dad's dad, gave me an old beat up AM/FM radio with an analog clock on it when I was probably like 6 years old. It was in his garage. He must have got a new one. Actually, I remember he brought like a stereo into the garage, and this was just like a clock with a radio in it. It was just like a little white box. And so Grandpa gave that to me, and I was so proud because I got to take that back to my house and put that in my bedroom. And I could now listen to KMOX, which was the AM station, 1120, and I could listen to the Cardinals each night if I wanted to. And so every night growing up, I could listen to Cardinal baseball. And there was nothing better because everybody in my neighborhood, we played baseball or wiffle ball or stick ball or kickball. We played ball of some way, Indian ball. We played everything. We played all kinds of ball all summer, winter, fall. We played it all the time in our neighborhood. All the kids played ball. And so you only got 162 games in the summer. And you didn't get as many games on TV as you did back in the day. You didn't get any home games, and you would get some away games, but you didn't get, it was a treat to see them on TV, but you could listen to every single game on KMOX on the radio, on AM radio. So I'd have that radio in my room and I'd listen to it every night. And the thing was, it was always Jack Buck and Mike Shannon calling the game. And the thing is, I'm a podcaster, right? I love doing what I do. I love talking about things. I love talking about Disney because I have a passion for it. It's a fun place where you can make memories and share so many stories. You can go so many different ways with a Disney vacation. You can go on a ship. You can go to Disneyland. You can go to Walt Disney World. You can stay in all these hotels. You can go and not go to the parks. You can go and do every attraction. You can have a first timer. You can have somebody that's doing, the 50th. That's why I love telling the stories on the podcast. I love getting to tell stories into the microphone and share them with people. Well, that's what Jack and Mike did. They inspired me and other people, my dad. But, Jack and Mike were the soundtrack of my childhood. And Jack Buck, he's in the Broadcasters Hall of Fame for the Cooperstown for the Baseball Hall of Fame. So he got Parkinson's late in his career in the 90s, but he continued to broadcast. And I remember when he passed away in 2003, I believe it was. And I was teaching at Space Camp at the time. I was down in Huntsville. I remember because when I got the news, we stayed in dorm rooms at the University of Alabama, Huntsville. And I got the news that Jack Buck had passed away, and it just made me cry. And it's weird because I never met Jack Buck. But I had listened to Jack Buck for my entire childhood. At that point, I was like 29 years old. No, I was probably in my 30s when I was working at Space Camp. And no, I was probably in my late 20s, but it doesn't matter. But the thing is, I just cried like I lost an uncle or like I lost a grandpa. And I didn't know him. It was a one-sided thing, but I knew a lot about him because he would tell the thing about baseball and announcing is that you don't just announce the game. There's a lot of it's a slower pace game, at least it used to be, and you could tell stories. And baseball has all this backstory to it about the heroes from the 60s and the 50s and the 40s, the Dizzy Deans and the Bob Gibsons and the Enos Slaughters and the Babe Ruths and the Lou Gehrigs and the Mickey Mantles and all this stuff. And I love that stuff. And when Jack Buck passed away, it just hit me so hard that he was gone. I'd never hear Jack Buck say that's a winner again. And so fast forward to Sunday, I was walking on the treadmill watching. I think I was watching the Yankees game on MLB TV on my iPad as I was just walking, getting in some steps. And the news broke that Mike Shannon had passed away. Now, I remember thinking to myself that at least we had Mike because, Jack and Mike were the connection to my childhood. Jack Buck, Mike Shannon. And Jack Buck passed away 20 years ago. But we had Mike, and Mike still was calling the games until 2021. He was still calling them until about 2 years ago, but he was still around. You still saw Mike Shannon. He was at Busch Stadium on the last homestand about a week and a half ago. He was at Busch. He was waving to the crowd and everything. And so, there was a comfort in that. Mike was still at Busch. He was still waving. He was still having a cold, frosty one because he was a huge beer drinker. And it was just like, because St. Louis is a beer drinking town. I'm not a beer drinker, but that's just part of that. That was his persona. He would talk about on the air. It's time to get a cold frosty one. That's what he'd say. And it was just comforting to hear his laugh and his storytelling. And when that news came through that he had passed away, that was it. My broadcasting team is now gone. Not that I don't appreciate the guys who do the games now. I love them. They're okay. But I remember listening to Jack and Mike with my grandpa, and my grandpa's gone, and I remember like listening to the games and, because the thing is like, I go back in my mind's eye and I hear them calling the games in my grandpa's big green F-150, as we're riding around coming home from church or sitting on the deck at my grandparents' house on a hot, like July day. I just, because the game was always on over there. And I just, it's one of those things. As things change, you just slowly lose a little bit of your childhood. Like when Toys R Us closes, like that was a place that you look forward to going with your grandparents or with your mom or with your dad. We get to go to Toys R Us. Like it was such a big deal as a kid. And then when it's no longer around, you lose that little piece of your childhood. It's kind of like the shopping malls nowadays, right? You can still go to them, some of them, and there are a couple of really nice ones. There's a really nice shopping mall out in Independence, Missouri. We used to play soccer tournaments with Paige. I love going to that one because it reminded me of my childhood shopping mall, only it was way bigger out there. But it was that experience. There's a really nice one up in Schaumburg, Illinois. When Mallory cheers, we go to that one. But around here, there's not a lot of shopping malls anymore. And so every time I see a shopping mall close, like mine was called Jamestown Mall, and it's been closed for 10 years. They're getting ready to knock it down. Another piece of your childhood gone, dying away. And I don't know. Here's, I don't want to go, I said I wasn't going to go too long today, and I'm not. But here's my question for you. And I know we all have these regional things, right? I felt bad when Harry Carey died. And I'm not a Chicagoan. He was a St. Louis guy for a long time before he went to Chicago. But I didn't have that connection. I never heard him call St. Louis games. I did listen to him on TV with Steve Stone for years and years because they were the Superstation. And so they would only play day, that's how old I am. They would play day games on WGN when I was a kid. And so we had always watched Steve Stone and Harry Carey call games on WGN because they were day games. And so we'd watch them all summer. We'd also watch WOR, who carried the Mets. And we watch WTBS that would carry the Braves because those are like the three free stations that were on like not paid cable, but regular cable. And we'd watch baseball on those three super stations. But especially because during the day, Cubs and Wrigley Field. So when Harry died, I was like, oh, but it hit me harder with Jack and Mike because I think radio is a more intimate broadcast medium. And I have this with a couple of my podcasters too. Leo Laporte, I listen to his shows. I've met him once briefly. He was here for a public appearance in 2020 at a technology company down the road. And I got to meet him and get a picture with him. He would never remember me. He was at a bar. I just got a picture and I told him, I said, I appreciate everything you do with your podcasts. And I told him, you've really inspired me to become a podcaster and to chase my dreams. And he was like, that's super cool. But I mean, he's met thousands and thousands and thousands of fans. He will never remember taking that picture with me, but it meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to me that I got to meet him. I wish I would have got to have met Jack Buck, and I wish I would have got to have met Mike Shannon, because Mike Shannon was a St. Louis kid. Man, he lived the ultimate St. Louis dream. He played for the Cardinals. He was the quarterback of the Mizzou Tigers, and he called baseball for the Cardinals for over 50 years. And he was just, he still is. He will always be a legend in St. Louis. He's beloved. And what else more could you want as a St. Louis guy? How cool is that? What a legacy. We'll keep him forever. Anyway, those are my thoughts. And now I've given you a lot to think about this week. And I'm sorry if it was a little bit of a downer and not the super positive thing. I'll come up with a fun topic. I promise you. Don't go away. Don't stop subscribing. I'll come up with something fun next Tuesday. But I love you guys. And I think sometimes you got to get together and just virtual hug, right? That's what we're doing today. Virtual hug, because I love you guys so much. All right, I'm going to jump out of here and let you get on with your Tuesday. Thanks so much for being there. I appreciate you guys more than you know. And you guys take care of each other. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you real soon.